Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
I move that we authorize the general manager to execute the purchase power agreement.
Mr. Head makes a motion. Do I hear a second?
Don't you want to include as presented?
She's pretty good at that.
As presented.
I don't know.
I would, but he beat me to it.
As presented, yeah.
Would you like to second?
I second it.
Ms. Castillo, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion on errors and omission insurance coverage.
So last month, the board asked, you know, what's covered, what's not covered, and I sent that question to TML, which is our insurance company, and they said it's a case-by-case basis. We will not tell you what's covered until we know a specific situation. So if you have a specific situation that you would like me to ask about, the legal answer is you'll have to give us all of the facts and concerns surrounding it, and then we'll look at the policy and determine if it's covered.
Okay.
So there's no,
That's a legal answer.
yeah, there's no blindness to yes or no.
That's not your favorite, so that's nice.
Don't worry about it.
Selling a product, well, I don't tell you what it is, but you do.
That's right.
Do we have any
By the
questions?
way, I'm gonna go up on it because I can't tell you what I'm gonna cover.
Do we have any questions on the errors and omission insurance?
Who you are and how much money you got.
Okay. Update on other projects.
Okay, so the AMI deployment still moving along. Still working on efficiencies and moving that forward on the deployment. So we are now at, as of yesterday, it's not up on that screen, but 8,100 AMI, you know, installations that are out there on the system. So we're over halfway.
So that's 50%.
Yeah. So you think about it. In February, we were still at 2,000, so we've had over 6,000 installations, you know, in 6 months or so.
We still got them coming in?
So that's a good question. So we have just shy of 3,000 house meters on hand, and that's, we call house meters the residential, the the remote disconnect and the non-remote. So every meter we're ordering now is a remote disconnect. Okay, so even in the contract, we went back and said, can you change this stuff under contract and change them to the remote disconnect? And once we pushed that, the answer was yes. So they agreed and they changed those under contract also to the remote disconnect. So we're getting what basically we should have been asked for to begin with, of all remote disconnect, to keep from the rolling the trucks on that aspect. So the answer is it's still coming in. We have less than 3,000 of the residential. They found 1,000 that were under contract of the regular house meters. They have reissued that purchase order and changed that over to the remote disconnect. So those are ordered. And then we ordered another 1,000 outside of contract. So now, within this next week, we're trying to get a good count of where we are, of number of meters on hand, how many are ordered, and see what's outstanding and place that order for the remaining house meters to finish. Our guess was a little over 3,000 need to be ordered. So we want to come up, get fairly close, so we don't want to shoot and be 1,000 over and have 1,000 meters on hand for, you know, that length of time. I'd rather, you know, if we do miss that and overshoot by 500, it's way better than having 500 more than that sitting around for years, you know, before we ever use them. So we're going to get down and start getting a better count before we place this next order, and that's what we're going to start looking at. So the leeway is about 7, do you remember, I think it's about 7 weeks that they're looking at on these, if they have the modules and everything. So like I said, we're going to be cutting it close before this next 2,000 come in, if we have enough meters to last during that time span. But you know, by then we should be at 10,000, and hopefully we'll be there on that aspect.
So
yes, sir.
we're looking at maybe 6 months completing this, or 9 months?
It's going to slow down a little bit because now we're going to be out getting the ones where the gates are locked and some of these stragglers that are out once we finish some of the high density areas. So it's going to slow down just a little bit. So in the last 2 weeks, usually when everyone is doing the installations, TMD and everything, they're getting over 100 installations a day now. So we were never there. It used to always be, what, 30, 40 was the number we have, and now they're pushing it 100, you know, when they're all doing it. So yesterday was close to 120 installations that they did yesterday. So, you know, emails have been going out, great job, way to go, and all this other stuff, because, you know, it is hot out there. You know, so they are moving and doing the
And
right
we
thing.
have a contractor doing that, right?
They're helping when they're not reading meters. So TMD reads the meters on the cycles. So if they're cycled now, because of the installations, only takes them 2 days out of the week to read, the other 3 days they're installing meters. So if it takes them 4 days, they're installing meters 1 day. So it really is by the route of how many days they, you know, devote to installing meters. But TMD does help.
The more new ones they install, the less reading they have to do, so they can do more installation.
That is correct. So a couple of other things, I asked the team to, you know, they give me a report, so I'm just going to go over a couple of them that they did. Postcards, first articles. So now there's a couple of things that we looked at. They were going to deny a couple of the first articles, that's just us getting a certain class of meter. We tested to make sure it meets what we're wanting. Well, it was decided last week, a couple of the meters, we wanted to change that spec, and we had a meeting with Itron of how do we go about doing that. And they said, well, you still haven't approved your first article. Go in there and rewrite your program and tell us what you want, and then deny, you know, reject it, and they will then produce that meter the way we want it. So we're going to make some changes before they ever ship out those meters based off of the old spec. We're catching stuff now that we wanted something, it should have been ordered something different, and we caught it soon enough now, you know, this last week, that we can have those changes made and everything else moving forward. So that's some things that we're looking at. So the other thing is there was training yesterday with dispatch. That would be, you know, Lorenzo, Jose, Jeff, Robert Biela Robertson, to where they can look at the event monitor now, and they can monitor what's going on with the installations and look at the communications back and forth. So they were trained on that yesterday. So in the office, Ruby looks at that a little bit, no?
She looks at it for some things, mostly after disconnects, to make sure that there's no.
But she looks at it here, and then I think Bobby Ray looks at voltage, the swags and everything. And have I given you access yet to where you can view and look at some of the stuff, Bruce? Okay. So, you know, that'll be something else to where Bruce and everyone can, you know, those people can look at that on a daily basis and see where we are, and see what's communicating, see where the voltage and stuff across the system is. So we're sharing that information, you know, across to the dispatch and everyone else that sits there all day looking at those screens. They need to sit there and look at that aspects instead of the ones that look at the computer screens all the time. So that training was yesterday. There's some meters over in Livonia that aren't communicating, and what it was, I think it's behind a large drop off a hill or something of that nature. So we really need to have a better collector or something in that area. So, you know, we're coming up with some options of doing it, and I think we've reached out to GVC and asked if we could put a collector on some of their equipment, and they've agreed that we could do that. So, you know, we are getting a relationship back and forth to where we can do some of that stuff instead of us going and setting a tower pole, you know, like an 85-foot pole, which that'd be crazy for us to go set just to put that equipment on there when GVC is there and could help us out, and they agreed to do that. So there's different things that we're looking at and discussing what's the most feasible thing and most efficient for us to move forward on those projects. So we're also trying to get some different staff members to help on some of the change-outs. So that would be Robert and Jeff. So when they finish their workload, they're going to, supposedly what we're hoping for is they'll pick up some of the stragglers where the gates are locked, and, you know, TMD and everyone passes those up. They will be the ones that go back in there and do those installations when they finish their work of the day, you know, they might pick up 3 or 4 or 5, you know, that they can pick up and do at the end of whatever else that they do on that aspect. So that will help up picking up some of those things there. So the old meters, we're looking at selling those, so we're doing some looking into who's willing to purchase it. TMD has now stepped up and said that they might be looking, they'd be willing to purchase those. Any amount of money is better than nothing.
What would they do with such a thing?
They refurbish some of those, and then some utilities that don't go into the AMI, you know, development, those
Yeah.
are meters that they sell to those type of people. Now, the other thing is that we have some brand new meters that have never been used that we talked about yesterday that we need to approach, you know, the vendor and find out who's using this type of meter and see if we can sell that. Even though at a discounted rate, we try to recoup some of that money because that meter will never be used by us. Even though they're brand new, we just need to try to, you know, sell it. We'll take the, you know, the logo of Felps off of it and everything else, but you know, it will be sold to a different utility on that aspect. So that's where we have a meeting this afternoon on, you know, a meter data management for the AMI system, which would give us better looking at how the system's doing, what it is, and it also is something that the customer looks at on that aspect to see what your usage is, what you could do, and everything else at your home. We're still looking at what product we're going to use to roll this out to the end user, but it's also for us also to where we can monitor outages, because it's going to be, there's options that you can do where it's mapped out that it shows that these 20 houses is where your outage is, instead of us saying, oh, this whole area should be way back up here. But this program will show you exactly, or it should, where stuff is. And we're trying to learn and teach how to develop this, and we're going to use that moving forward to hopefully cut outage times in that aspect and send the crews to the right place and everything else, instead of them trying to just patrol the whole line and everything else. And this program will also show that if those 20 homes are out and they pick up the cause and they turn it back on, it will still show if there's one house that did not come back on. So they could just go to that one house. You don't have to sit there and wait for that person to call. It'll be lit up and say that one didn't come back on. So really, their fuse or something might have happened at their house also. So, you know, it'll show that instead of us going, and then 3 hours later, that person gets home and says, oh, I'm still without a light. We would have already known that. We would have repaired it. So there's different things that we're looking at on that and moving forward. So the SS30 project, we're still moving forward with that. There's still that little bit of an easement thing. I think Bruce and Drew have been working on some different solutions that are coming out of there. We have that out to a couple of different contractors to give us some pricing to construct this, and we'll bring that back when we get that information about what this total cost would be for this project of construction. But we're still working on easement issue. Remember that we were down to 1, and now when Bruce wrote that with Drew, it was kind of like, I think Bruce made a comment, why don't we look at maybe coming this way and back this way? So they're looking at a different way of coming out and just forgetting that, because we haven't had a response from this last person that it's a holdout. So, you know, there's a different possibility, because y'all talk to, is it the city or is it just the county? County? About, because it's, that area is a developed and plotted area, but it's not developed. Because they have it designed and shown where the roads and stuff are supposed to be and everything else, but it was never really developed. So it's, some of it's supposed to be maybe county property, and Bruce and, like I said, Drew have been working on that of a different way to come back. And I think one of the persons that's back in that area says, oh great, I'll let you come this way because I need electricity. So it's kind of like, oh okay, it works, you know, so it kind of works as a good thing, you know, on that aspect, because we need to find some way to get there because we can't get there. So the deal is us going up to where they didn't have the easement. There was a possibility of jumping the road over here and then going one span and then jumping back over. But that would do a triple circuit, and that would put the 2 main lines going to Lavernia on the same pole, which we're trying not to do. So it was kind of like, nah, we're not doing that. That's out the picture. We're not even, that wasn't even a consideration, you know, because if we're going to spend money on this project for a redundant thing, you're not going to put the 2 circuits on the same pole.
that aren't gonna be redundant.
Yeah. So that's where we are in there. We're still moving forward. We're in the process of getting some stuff from a couple of contractors on that thing.
And that's the Sutherland Springs area where you couldn't buy the.
Yes, ma'am. So they did find that individual on the corner, but no ever response back after they said they were gonna respond back, so yeah, I can hear from them. So the next one was a community solar. We talked about that on that aspect with the PPA. Inventory levels, we're still working on those, trying to get a, where we're bidding and what we're doing, so those are still being looked at. I guess now Bruce will be pulling in a little bit on that. The tree trimming, but the project that we're doing, we have one crew that has started yesterday,
Oh, they start on Monday next week.
Monday. There's one crew here now, isn't there?
I don't think so. I think they actually.
I think there's
Yeah,
one
that's
now.
one started yesterday.
Yeah.
They did start.
There's one here now that's in Bentwood, and then the other crew will start the 3rd, September 3rd, so we'll be running 2 crews. The first crew's in Bentwood, the next crew will be here in the city of Floresville. So Bobby Ray took one for Floresville around yesterday to show them where we're talking about and what we're looking at and everything else here in the city of Floresville. It was decided Floresville was a higher priority of tree growth than Poth. So we repositioned over here as the main area. There's a lot of copper and different aspects still in this area, so if that line goes down, we need the system clean so we can pull up new lines. So they're trying to plan ahead in case there is something that did happen. So that's why it's kind of relocated to here before it went over to Poth. So I think it'd be Bentwood, and Bentwood, that crew would then go to Poth, but this crew that'll start next week will be doing here in the city, Floresville. So we calculated out that 2 crews, since we started so late, 2 crews could work just about to the end of the year and use up what was budgeted in the budget. 1 crew couldn't, so we said, let's just bring on another one and knock that out and get up to where we're supposed to on the tree trimming, since it was kept on being pushed so far out. Remember, we did a contract, what was that, 2 months ago?
We executed in May, I believe, and they had trouble getting crew
They could
members.
never get a crew. They finally did after some heavy pushing down the pedal with them. They got here, and then we just contacted and got another crew here also. So that's where we are on that. So the facilities is still moving forward. Actually, the contract was actually finalized, signed, sent over the earnest money contract, all that stuff was done. They were on site, I think it was yesterday, it wasn't Monday, because yesterday I noticed it had all the flagging. It didn't have it on Monday. So they are starting their due diligence, CBS is on that aspect. So they are out there doing the due diligence of surveying, checking the samples, making sure the water line is large enough, sewer, whatever is out there that we need. They're in the process of doing that right now, moving forward on this project. But like I said, they have started on that, moving forward.
Who's doing all the paperwork? As far as, is there a real estate agent involved? Who's doing all of that?
The broker that used was Jeff
Ocean Deers.
He was one of them, and the other one was Olson out of
Yeah,
San
the broker
Antonio.
for the other group was,
But then Rodrigo was involved with it, and then like now, we don't do anything. CBS does everything with it. So CBS went out and, like we talked about before, they bid and used the people, and that's who I just wanted to make sure that, because I heard that another company that, hey, it's one we already do business with, would y'all look at that? So they entertained them, but they didn't come in at the lowest, they went to the lowest, and I said, I'm good, it's y'all's project. So they are bidding it out and doing everything else on it. So that's where the facility stuff is right now. So this part of it is supposed to be, what, a 30 to 60 day?
yeah, it's 6 to 8 weeks.
So that's also in that contract and everything else of how long it is. So, there's clauses to that contract to go back if it doesn't meet the feasibility, the contract goes away. So it's not a sold piece of property 100% yet. It has to be something on due diligence that doesn't work out. So on the 16th, we had the all-employee meeting. So we covered the questions that were posed to Ross. I spoke about the answer, the responses to that. I believe everybody on the leadership team also made comments when I was finished about different aspects, handled questions back and forth, whoever wanted to ask questions during the meeting. Started at 8, finished right at 12. We furnished lunch for all the employees, and then everyone reported to work at 1 o'clock to, back up here at 1. Line crew, I'm not certain that some of y'all went out, some of y'all just cleaned trucks and did stuff, I believe, correct, that day? It was a work on your vehicle and clean up stuff, I believe, for most of it. Yeah. So, the service crews and them, they went out, and did the service work and that, but the line crew being at 1 o'clock, there wasn't a lot of time for them to get ready to kick out, so they cleaned trucks and serviced vehicles and did what they needed to there in the yard on that aspect. The feedback meeting went well, had some good comments that were in there during that meeting and everything else. To me, it seemed like it was appreciative. I mean, there's some things that we still need to address and work on. So we've put together a couple of committees. It was mentioned about more community involvement. So there was a committee that's been put together for more things that we can do in the community, volunteer work in that aspect. So we have a group of employees that have volunteered to be on that, and we chose some of them to, look at what we can do for the communities that we serve, and be more involved as a utility on that aspect. Even though we do a lot, that was a comment on some of that stuff that we need to do more. They don't realize how much we already do, because we do a lot, as it is, but it's kind of like we're going to see now, we'll put that committee together, who comes up with what, and then see who participates in what we do going forward. So we volunteered also to, is it Salvation Army? Who rings the bell? Salvation Army? We volunteered to them that we would ring the bell for like 2 days during the week, and we will rotate employees up there for an hour, 2 hours at a time to ring the bell during the week, for 2 days for them of that. Wear a Felps shirt, get some, show our community support.
For how many weeks?
Just 2 days.
It's a pilot program.
It's a pilot program.
Aren't they there every day for about 4 weeks?
They don't do it during the week. They're willing to do it for us they only do it during the weekend, is what they said, right?
I don't recall.
If I'm not mistaken, they only do it during the weekend here, but they're willing to do it during the week if we tell them if we're going to host it the whole time during the day. And it's like, we can do that during the day, of doing some community support that way, and rotate some employees through there during the weeks.
And where is this? I mean,
They do it at Walmart and HEB or something, or is it
Walmart.
just Walmart? Okay.
Walmart. Oh, yeah, I've
Just
seen
in
them at
Bells,
Walmart,
yeah.
yeah.
So you'll see.
Yeah.
The board can't volunteer.
Yeah.
But rather than have on a red stocking, they're gonna have on their Felps.
Phelps, yeah.
Okay.
They can put a red hat.
If they want to.
Yeah. So like I said,
You got one, Terry?
he can put red on there. The last thing on the projects that we're doing is something different. We are going through all the vehicles right now, because we have a lot of vehicles that are not in use, so we're going through all of those and trying to find out what we can put together as a, an auction to getting rid of, because they're not used. We don't need to be a used, vehicle storage place, and that's what it's been like for years, that we have a bunch of them sitting around. So that's something that Bruce, Marcy, and Bobby Ray helped us when we were out at the yard, and then myself, we walked around and looked at the vehicles, what's been used, what hadn't been used, why haven't we used this, and trying to figure it out. And then we're going to get together, I think next week, what was it, Wednesday, and we're going to try to narrow that list down and start marking, and then start studying now why we marked that down as one that needs to go. So like I said, that will get rid of some of those vehicles, because we're estimating there's close to 20 pieces of equipment that we don't use that are sitting around.
Vehicles?
There's quite a few vehicles that parked out there, isn't it, Terry?
Sell them to the city.
Some of them have been parked there for a pretty good while that aren't used. Yeah.
City of Mile.
So that's the update on the projects of where we are on that, of what's going on.
That was a good comment, though. If we have some that are really good vehicles that need to go, check with all the cities that
Exactly.
are in the county.
All right, review of upcoming agenda items. Are you looking at him?
No, I'm just saying that, Marcy, if
I
we
don't- I
had
don't
something
have it.
that was up there, the only thing else that would be a possibility if we had, if they finished the feasibility, we'd be into the next stage of the CBS contract stuff, that might be a feasibility thing that we bring back up in the next step on that, once they finish that. So that's a possibility that'd be on there. And other than that, it's just something that you might want to, you know, to look at or anything else, but like I said, we can, if there's something else that comes up, we'll put on, you know, add it on there, or just make a comment to, you know, the chair, and then y'all can get that on there, but other than that, those are the only main things. You know something else that's sitting there? The only other thing would be, possibly if we get these reports back from contractors about the SS30 project, maybe getting a proposal on that, be okay to move forward with that project. You know, I don't know how much, what are you into that project on engineering? About 300? So, you know, it's a project that is kind of like, you know, we're at that point where, you know, to move forward with it and stuff, so it'll be one that's, you know, needs to be done. So it's already budgeted and everything else moving there. The
When
other thing
does-
else is that we're looking at starting budget
That's what I was
talks
gonna ask.
in that aspect.
We usually finish out August's actuals. Once we finish August actuals, we start talking about budget. I mean, we start before then, but it's better to have 8 full months of data.
So what month is it that we bring it to?
October.
We bring it to you in October.
We
We'll
have a
start
work
working
session
on
that
it this
month.
next month as
Oh.
a staff.
That was gonna be my next question, when we start. I remember whenever you were interviewing for the job, one of the things that myself and Sherry talked to you about was educational program for the employees.
Actually, we've been sending a lot of people to it. We had quite a few already signed up. Those employees aren't here anymore. So we're trying, there's some people that are signed up, about 3 people for October, the 1st of October in San Antonio
Okay.
for
Yeah,
some
for the
training.
APPAs.
So there's like 3 people going to that. So we have been sending people, who's the, Craig is signed up or something, I believe.
Burton too.
No, Craig is signed up to go to lineman training, pole climbing school, I believe, because he's not certified for pole climbing, correct? So I'm thinking he is signed up on that aspect, so because he was not certified. Now, Sergio was, so Sergio will not be going to pole climbing school because he went to lineman training school and they certified him while he was there. So that will be another apprentice that will be going
Let's
off.
go to the APPA conference in San Antonio.
Mark,
Isn't that September?
I thought it was October. Is it September? It's on my desk over there somewhere.
So anyway, we've made some money available to.
We've been spending and
employees.
going that, yeah.
Okay.
So there's 3 more that are going to San Antonio within the next month or so, and you have another lineman that's going somewhere. They've signed up for these classes. We'll know more going into next year because of this stuff was done, I guess, when Mike, the interim, was signing people up and not signing people up on that
Okay.
aspect.
We had
So-
2 customer service reps go last month to another utility and do some training.
Yeah, so, yeah, we sent 2. Where did they go this time? Oh, they went to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's somewhere.
So they went to Minnesota for TANWES training
Hmm?
for customer service. So there are people that are, you know, going to training and stuff of that nature. But that would be the only thing. We'll start working on budget, but that won't be brought to you as a board until October.
Any other board members want to bring anything up for upcoming agenda items? All right, then we'll move to review the generation and transmission factor for the month.
All right, so it's still, again, the recommendation until, I guess, the fall. We're gonna still ask and keep it at .069 for the G&T charges. And then I believe it's more into the fall that you look and see if it needs to be adjusted to catch ourselves up or do what we need to. That way it keeps you from that higher bill if there was an adjustment up during the summer months. So that's where we are still holding that. That's what I guess, did the board vote on that or make that comment, or y'all just decided that was the way to go if you first of the year or something?
Well, we
or
look
last
at
year?
it all the time, but we try to gauge any increases around times where it won't be as impactful to customers, so off months.
So it'd be your
Not
off
winter,
months
not
going
summer.
into the fall, you know, that time when if there's an adjustment that needs to be made. So there again, that's what you're looking at for your factor for the month.
Review the minutes of safe work practices staff meeting for the month of July 2019.
Okay, so July 9th meeting, and let's see. Near miss review, electrical clearance contact after landed secondary wires on pad mount transformer. The lid was lowered to close the transformer, and the lid contacted the two-hole bus, creating a secondary phase to ground fault.
Yes.
Committee recommendations on this was secondary bushing lug was removed and installed on the back side of the bushing paddle to increase clearance when closing the lid. A class was provided to linemen on July the 10th to prevent further incidents from occurring. So, you know, they've done a couple of different trainings on that aspect. So the committee is also going around and doing building risk assessments of the facilities that we have. So if you notice that the assignments in July, you know, when they did this, June, July, was the C&M site was conducted. And they talk about what was found in some areas, tire shop, you know, ladder that needs to be removed from service, unmarked orange liquid. You know, they're finding little bitty, you know, some things that need to be worked on that are there, and we're trying to correct those issues for safety reasons and to prevent hazards and or, you know, help with the safety issues of moving forward to where we don't have incidents occurring at the workplace. So the next one, I believe, they did, that'll be in the next report, they did the, whatever you want to call this building back here, the old, the operations building. They did it this last month, so you'll notice some things, and there was a whole bunch of things on that list that we will address a little bit, but we're not going to fully redo everything since that building will not be, we won't be operational out of that building hopefully in, you know, a 1.5 to 2 year period. So it's trying to keep the dollar amount of going in there, but we, for the safety reasons, we'll repair, but they flagged, you know, anything and everything like, you know, that was sitting there, which is good and what they should be doing, but it's some of those things we will decide of which ones to do. There's some slip areas that we're gonna repair, you know, anything of that nature, that, you know, all of that stuff's gonna repair the safety of that thing, but, you know, if it's just something very minor that they think, we're gonna decide of how we're going to repair it, or if it's gonna be a full-blown repair fix on that. So that's the safety committee, you know, that report for the month.
Mr. Lowe, maybe something for a future agenda, and I hadn't thought about this, but when do we begin studying, you know, what are we gonna do with this building in the event that we do build and everything works out the way we were hoping?
You know, I don't know, we haven't even talked about that on that aspect of what we would do here. So, I mean, we can start looking at that and bringing proposals to you about even just selling it on the market as is, or how we're gonna do that. The yard out there, we're gonna have to keep for a while, just because of the transition of what it is. These buildings, basically, you know, I would think once we're through here, they would be vacated. The one out there, we're still gonna have equipment and some material there, then, you know, we're gonna have to do some different things. The front of it, possible, could be leased out there, and then we just put a fence across the back part where we have some of our stuff and still keep it. I mean, there's some different things that we can look at that piece of property. This one, we'll have to look at and come up with something for
Yeah,
either
it might be
sell
toward
or
it
lease.
to put on the agenda, but just, I think we need to start
Start thinking about that, okay.
And that's
We'll
fine.
at least start talking about that.
What we could do is put it on the agenda, this way if board members have any ideas and stuff, they can at least give them to management and bring
Okay.
proposals they wanna do. This way you get a feel with the board, so we can stick that on the agenda items
Okay.
for next month. Are we done with the safe work practices?
Yes, sir.
All right, outages for the month.
Outages for the month, so this was Bruce's first time of grabbing some of the outages and stuff that occurred before his tenure. So these are some things that he's gonna start looking at and working on also. So he pulled out 5 outages, and, you know, for me to speak about, and the bad thing is that 4 of them came out of Sutherland Springs. So there's some things that when I saw this and mentioned it to Bruce, Bruce already saw it, and he already knows it needs to be addressed. So the first one was July 24th, cause was unknown, the customers was 1,247. My comment to Bruce, and he saw it too, that number should be way smaller than that. You should have fusing and sectionalizing, you know, your stuff of where it doesn't take that fault back to that many customers. So there again, on the 25th, they had another one on that same circuit, an animal, 1,247 customers. So there again, that shouldn't have been that large. That's something that's on Bruce's desk to start analyzing to see what we can, you know, shorten those sections with fusing or whatever we need to do to control that outage there. Then there again, on the 26th, another animal on that same circuit, 1,247 customers.
3 days in a row?
Yeah, somebody's losing a bunch of pets, huh?
And then August the 2nd, again, Sutherland Springs. This one might have been a little bit different. It took out a little bit more customers. 1873, the tree came across the line, fell on it. So, you know, that's some, you know, if it was some of our clearance of us not doing this or a tree far away, I don't know what that report
And
actually said.
they're all different source points? The outages?
The animals, I don't know where that animal was on that. It's not tied all the way down to where that actual animal was on that report. We can tie it down in the future a little bit closer, but it's on that same
Oh.
line. We know it's on that
But
same
there's
line.
not 3 coming from the same source point or anything?
Somewhere within that line before your next sectionalizing, your fusing, it's happening in there.
Okay.
So, you know, the thing is what Bruce will be looking at is maybe fusing or doing something else, whatever it is, at a shorter point to where only 100 and something will be taken out, not 1,200, 1,300. And the last one here was Eagle Creek, you know, substation animal again, you know, right at 1,300 customers there. So, you know, those are the outages for the month, and like I said, this is Bruce's first time to grab a hold of it and everything else, so I appreciate what he did of putting it together this way. And like I said, he will be looking at these and working on those in the future. So those will take a little while for him to study those and to come up to where they go, but we will start addressing those to where they don't come all the way back to the substation on these outages and stuff.
All right, appreciation letters.
Let's see if I can get this right, man.
There's your
Wait.
names coming.
Hang on, no, you just wait. I'm gonna do this one first. I can't read it. So this one is from Corey Juke.
There you go.
I wouldn't have pronounced it that way, I'd have stuttered, but I did ask. Thank you so much for the money scholarship, and it'll go to my college funds. I'm not for certain, was that just a scholarship?
Does it have an address? Yeah, scholarship. We do the 5 school districts, the scholarship.
Okay, so this one is from Walker Reinhard. There again, he must be a swimmer. Thanks so much for the
Jeremy
scholarship. It will be definitely
Sugar.
used in my college, so
All
there
city?
again.
They go to the school in Pope, they live on the Borrego, that Jukelin.
Oh,
So this one is a Lavernia Stock Show, Cheyenne Haddock. Thank you
Right
for
on.
donating money towards me, really appreciate it. Generous, my college funds.
Never heard that. Dr. Phelps, Mr. Phelps.
All right, so these are basically ones now for that. I'm doing the ones that we hear about from the employees. There's more than these that we don't hear about, believe me.
Wish we put those in the paper.
But here you go. This, you know, this is from a customer, and they named the address of where they live, and they just had a utility pole replaced. Just wanted to give praise to the men that came out to do it. They were very efficient, very safety conscious, and they cleaned up after themselves. And I just felt they needed some praise. So, customer had a meter pole replaced by Rudy Magia, Juan Torres, and Gary Orth. So another one that came through, we just wanted to thank two individuals that were able to supply power to our house. Rudy, they didn't say his name, last name right, but Rudy and Mark Hill. They said Molino, but it's Magia. We happened to be at the house when they arrived and asked them how long they'd be before they got the power in our home, and I was surprised it took them 20 minutes. So I was very impressed with these two individuals for the prompt service that they gave us, and it was a great team. I wanted to thank them for their professionalism and hard work and extremely warm days.
Very satisfied customer.
Yeah, so another one that came through, I'm not going to say the customer's name, I'm trying to get to where it was. She wanted to make sure to let us know that our servicemen just recently did some work replacing poles in the transformer in her area behind her house, and they were so fantastic. She also stated that Carlos Herrera, she didn't state that. She said a word that I don't know, nickname, Boogie. Everybody here knows him by that, I was told. I don't know him by that, but I do. But Boogie is how she listed him. Came to her the day before and made her aware that they were going to be doing the work the following day. And he was also sweet. Wow, maybe I shouldn't read all this. He was so sweet and professional. And when Ruben's crew came out, so I don't know, she didn't know who was all on Ruben's crew, so she must have saw Ruben's name. So I don't know who was on his crew. I'm going to guess who's on Ruben's crew normally.
They're not gonna tell.
Craig? Greg? Greg? And who?
Juan Torres.
Juan, maybe? But that goes to the crew at the time that was working with Ruben, and how nice were they? And they were in and out, did the work quickly, and they cleaned up after themselves so nicely. They also stated she knows that we get a lot of complaint calls, so she wanted to make sure that she lets us know what a fantastic job that they did. Told her thank you, and did all on that aspect. So, that's all of the thank you notes.
Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.
Y'all